everyone, and welcome to another video. This story was sent to me by a viewer who narrowly escaped being drawn into a romance scam and narrowly escaped sending money to the scammer. A few months ago, a viewer contacted me and said this: "I just found your YouTube channel and I'm enjoying it hugely. Thank you." I'd like to say thank you to my viewer. Would you be interested to know about the romance scam I fell into last year via a dating website? They pretended to be an independent football scout, recruiting players for top clubs and football academies. The scam was never about medical bills or coming to visit me. It was more of a professional thing. I was being groomed to offer to pay a fee that would be urgently needed for him to complete a valuable contract in Turkey, after which he implied we were going to live happily ever after. They were sophisticated enough to do many long voice calls. The man on the phone had a seductive and only lightly accented English-speaking voice, and they used fake emails, contractual documents and websites to back up the story. I suspect they were also doing romance scams related to the mining industry / oil rigs, as the same individual had registered anonymously in Iceland bogus websites for both football academies and mining consultancies. Since it ended, no money changed hands. I've received support from the police and done some research, but have never heard of another case of this type. But it's a variant of a particular model where the scammer grooms their target to pay a relatively modest fee that is needed to release some potential wealth, e.g. valuable goods held in customs, or to hold a lucrative event like a boxing match, with the promise that they will enjoy a comfortable life together afterwards. Happy to share more info if you're interested. Of course I was interested, and I wrote back to my viewer suggesting that she could write her story or do an interview if she would prefer. My viewer replied, "I'm more a written word person. Also, I very much do not want to appear in a YouTube video in any way that I could be identified, so I prefer to send you a written description of what happened with some screenshots. Very annoyingly, I've just discovered that the various linked football academy and mining websites have now disappeared, and I didn't take any screenshots. They were mostly registered in February 2022, so maybe they ran out after a year, or the scammers just wound them up and launched new ones. Also, screenshots of chat. In a scam like this one, where they were happy to do voice calls, most of the relationship took place verbally. The chat messages don't tell the half of it, although there are a couple of telling ones I can send. Previously, I volunteered to help a forensic linguist who researches the language used by romance scammers, but it's a limitation of her research that she's only looking at written messages. Oscar was a fiend for sending love song links too. After about a week, it became daily, usually with a gushing message, but it did feel rather lazy. I wondered how a man who didn't seem very interested in music could know so many love songs. It was a few months before my viewer felt able to tell her story, and when she did, this is what she sent me. She headed it, "A Scam of Two Halves." I'd like to tell you about the scam that I went through, because I haven't heard of this scenario anywhere else. They claimed to be a freelance international football scout. The scam played out to a schedule that ran for about 6 weeks from first contact to the sting. In the first half, they groomed me with lots of talk about the job, that when he landed a contract to scout football players, it was worth a lot of money. In the second half, he supposedly won a big contract in Europe, and then pretended to be working on it day by day for 2 weeks. Read on for the sting. The scammer, it was probably a team, but I'll refer to them as him for simplicity, certainly had done some research. In fact, when I read up about the grim life of most football scouts, I wondered if the scammer might be a real football scout who had taken up romance scamming for an easier life. He talked a lot about the job and encouraged me to ask questions. Of course, there was a limit to the detail he could be expected to go into for reasons of confidentiality. In fact, the only player I recall him naming was Lionel Messi, who even I've heard of. He once told me about Messi's management issues with what sounded like insider knowledge, but really it was no more than the information that is available online. This scam was seriously well prepared, with a set of email accounts, fake websites and fake documents in place to give it a semblance of reality. This was romance scamming on an organised crime level. The first half. I was catfished via a reputable dating website. And she sent a screenshot. "Hi there," he said. "Lovely smile you've got. Happy to message if you'd like." "Hello," she said. "You look pretty good yourself. How's life in—" wherever he claimed to be located. "It's really good," he said. "The weather hasn't been too bad, and I've managed a long walk around the park this morning. I only moved to this place just around 4 years ago, shortly after my divorce proceedings." "Oscar," she said, "looked just my type. There was only one photo, but men often only have a profile photo, and at least his was a good one. His profile was well written too. It emphasised how family was all important to him. For travel, it said disappearing islands, which sounded interesting, but neither of those matched the persona I got to know. The man didn't take holidays, and his story about unhappy family relationships played a role in the scam. Of course," she added. My viewer added a couple of screenshots. "Do you consider yourself religious? Spiritual?" he asked. "Oh," she said, "if you're asking, perhaps this is important to you." And then another screenshot, where he said, "Hi, hope you're having a productive day so far. Being religious or spiritual isn't important to me. I asked because it's important to some people. I wanted to find out earlier on. Although I was born into a devout Baptist family, and as a Catholic when I lived with my grandmother in Italy, I stopped practising long ago, realised it's more of a tradition and a different from what it was set out to be. On day one," continued my viewer, "he asked about my religion. Bizarrely, he said that he'd been raised both as a Baptist and as a Catholic, presumably spreading the net wide to catch women of different religious/spiritual leanings. If I'd answered positively, I'm sure that would have taken the scam down a different route. Within 48 hours, he got me off the dating website and onto WhatsApp." And then my viewer copied and pasted part of the conversation. "Hi," he said, "it's Oscar from the dating platform." "Hello," said my viewer. "How are you?" "Great," he said. "Thank you. Getting ready for a walk now. How's your day been?" "Well," she added, "odd, because I've got COVID." "Oh," he said, "sorry about that. Unfortunately, it's something that'll stay with us, and we'll just have to adapt to it. I managed not to catch it since it started, so I'm one of the few who've so far escaped it, touch wood. You'll be fine in the next couple of days, so you should take loads of fluids to help." "Thanks," said my viewer. "How was your day?" "Morning. I had fallen asleep when you sent your message. My day went, and quite busy too, hence why I had an early night." "Good morning, Oscar," my viewer said. "Are you off to work? What do you do?" "I work mostly from home," he said, "except for times when I have appointments, meetings, or have to go for a short work trip. I work as an independent football scout. It involves discovering young prospects and other technical processes leading up to an eventual contract being signed." "That sounds like really interesting and challenging work," said my viewer, "but I hate to say that I'm the least sporty person, and I know nothing about football. I hope you won't be bored if I can't converse about football." My viewer added, "After the scammers had quickly eliminated religion/spirituality as a way in, my deep ignorance of professional sport is probably why I was targeted for this particular football scam scenario." "I like your sense of humour," he said. "It's okay. We don't have to converse about football, and the way I watch it is probably different from the way fans do. You'll probably find me scribbling things on a paper, making notes when watching." My viewer added in here, "I then asked about his background. Not sure why they chose Oscar for an Italian name." "I was born in Philadelphia," he said. "My dad is American and my mum Italian, hence my name. But I spent some of my early years living with my grandmother in Bologna, from when I was around 5 years old till my early teenage years, before moving back to my parents in Philadelphia. It was such lovely times living there. Got my culinary skills and passion for my profession there. Only disappointing part of my stay there is that I can't speak Italian, even though I still have a bit of an accent that won't go away. LOL. My viewer asked me to illustrate this video and started the ball rolling herself by sending a photo of Philadelphia and a photo of Bologna. "What brought you to UK?" she asked, "and to the world of professional football? if these aren't too large and personal questions. Football was, and still is, the most popular sport in Italy, he said. Every kid back then played in one way or the other. The coaches back then realised I had an eye for the technicalities involved, so they encouraged me, and I never looked back ever since. Studied sports management when I went to PA, and it's been my profession ever since. I've had loads of work-related trips over here in the past. You know, football is so huge here. I became acquainted with the environment, having already established contacts that were good for my job. So I decided to, since there was nothing holding me back in PA. The divorce was already finalised, and we didn't have kids. At this stage of my life, home is where the heart is, and that can be anywhere, even the moon, as long as it's with that one that my heart beats for. I would go to the moon and back for that special one. My viewer replied, "You certainly speak fluent romantic." "And you have such a way with words too," he replied. "Why, thank you," said my viewer. "It's my job." "Please tell me a little about your job." So my viewer described her job, but prefers not to include it here because she doesn't want to be identified. "That's really interesting," he said. "Completely different from my line of profession, though, but fascinating." "What are your plans for the rest of the evening?" he asked. "Will you be putting decorations for the Queen's Jubilee?" "My guilty pleasure," she said, watching Bridgerton. "Better ways to spend an evening could be imagined, however." "Ha ha," he said, "I like your sense of humour." "Would it be too forward?" she asked. "You can tell I'm watching a Regency drama, to talk on the phone?" "Sorry," he said. "I was getting the bath ready. I'm just off for a soak. Might take some time in there, as I find it very relaxing. I don't think it's too forward to talk. Do you have an early start tomorrow?" "It's a bit late," she said. "How about a phone call tomorrow evening? Please don't interrupt your bath." And so he phoned her, apparently. "I really enjoyed our conversation," he said. "You're so easy to talk to. Have a wonderful night rest. Night-night." The one who did the phone calls, my viewer added in here, was fluent in English, and he had a beautiful voice, soft and seductive. Really, his acting talents were wasted on romance scamming. I just regret that I didn't record any of the calls. The story was that Oscar Powell was from Philadelphia, USA. When taught more later about his childhood in Bologna, there were inconsistent and fairly implausible timings and explanations for it, but it was important to the scam. 1. To explain why the scammer didn't have an American accent. In fact, he had no trace of an American accent. I couldn't place his accent. It wasn't Italian, but sounded sort of Mediterranean. And I'm going to add in here that when my viewer and I were emailing each other, we pondered whether maybe the scammer was from Turkey or possibly Tunisia. As the messages show, his English was good, but not that of a native English speaker, let alone an American. He even used English mum, not American mom. 2. Why an American would make a career in professional soccer. And 3. His brother's resentment that Oscar had got to live in Italy, not him. On reflection, the child who was looked after at home in the US by their parents might be considered the lucky one, rather than the one sent to live in a foreign country. I wonder if this is a projection of the scammer's world view. Although they clearly believe an American man is especially desirable, for the scammers, reaching Italy may be the ultimate. Oscar said had been married for 15 years with no children. The marriage ended because his wife cheated on him with one of their friends. He set out for the airport on a football scouting trip, realised he'd left some papers behind at home, so he hurried back and found them in bed together. He painted a vivid and detailed picture of that terrible day. But would his wife really have been so hasty as to summon her lover into bed within the minutes of Oscar leaving for the airport? Had the other man been waiting in the wardrobe? After that, he fell out with his resentful brother over a credit card debt. With these bad memories and nothing to keep him in Philadelphia, Oscar decided to move to England in 2018, as it would be better for his football scouting work. He lived in a rented flat in a good area. He wanted to buy a house, but that had been held up by the pandemic and rising house prices. Plausible enough. I did wonder what his immigration status was, though. Back to the chat messages. "Wishing you a very good morning, Oscar. I'm still self-isolating, so would very much welcome a chat with you later. I do like your accent and your gentle voice. I could listen for hours." "Oh," he said, You're so sweet. Thank you for the compliment. Thinking about you non-stop. How's your day going? Had lunch yet? Seems you're having a busy day. Not at all, she said. Sorry, I didn't see your message earlier. How about you? I was going to say, if you want to Google me, my surname is... And she gave him her surname. What's yours? I wouldn't do that, he said. I'm not a creepy type of man. My last name is Powell, he said. I'll be setting off in a bit. Hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. If we're unable to catch up later, I'll text you soon, as I'm back later tomorrow. My viewer added, note, this was a Friday. Hi, she said. I trust you not to be creepy, but you might just be curious, and I'm happy to be searched. Do you go by train to London, or drive? By train, he said. I don't drive here just yet. I found it easier taking the local transports, as I mostly work from home, unless I'm having to travel or go somewhere for my meetings, appointments. Plus, you drive on the wrong side of the road over here too. I'll admit that, we do. On a serious note, though, he said, I'll look into getting a car and start driving soon. Oscar, my viewer added in here, would talk at length on the phone, but he would never show his face. When I first asked for a video call, he agreed we'd do it tomorrow. But... Morning, he said. Hope you had a good sleep. I was so tired yesterday, and silly me, managed to drop my phone while in the bath late last night. I've put it by the radiator to dry out, and a small bag of rice. My viewer added in again. He'd already made sure I knew that he took long baths, listening to music on his phone. I expected an international football scout would have the sort of phone contract where a damaged phone would be replaced without delay. But no. Soon, he said the phone had dried out. The only thing not working was, guess what? The camera. Did he not have a laptop or tablet he could use for video calls? No, added my viewer. My future requests for video calls were met with anger and emotional blackmail that I didn't trust him. Good morning, beautiful. Here's a song for you to start the day. Hope you like it. The lyrics says words from my heart. And he sent her the first of those YouTube song links. Good morning, Oscar, added my viewer. I'm so sorry I missed your call. He tried calling again. Seems we keep missing each other this morning. I woke up with a huge smile on my face, and it's all because of you. Now, added my viewer, it was clear that Oscar was avoiding FaceTime. I became suspicious. I also recognised the moving too fast and the love bombings as red flags. Oscar talked for hours on the phone, taking so much interest in me, listening, complimenting me. He was in love with a matter of days and very keen on phone sex. Now he was sending me links to love songs with gushing comments attached. I wondered how a middle-aged man, who didn't seem very interested in music, would know so many recent love songs. I imagined him having a playlist of them lined up, but still I didn't make the connection to a romance scam. A quick message to check on you, he said. How's the chest pain? This was odd, added my viewer, because I'd never mentioned chest pain, even when I had COVID. It's been a busy one already, he said a couple of days later, and a ton of paperwork sent in by a number of clients, one of which I might be having meetings with by the weekend to finalise a deal. It's still unconfirmed, but I'll get an email to confirm later. My viewer added in here. The grooming starts. Hope you're feeling okay. It's all fine here, she said, thanks. Best of luck for you, dear. It looks, she added, like the scammer has confused me with another target. Are you sure you're okay, he asked. Yes, I am, said my viewer. It's so kind of you to ask, but why wouldn't I be okay? Things are going well. I asked, he said, because I care, and I know you're still recovering from COVID. I've just noticed, said my viewer, going through this chat, that at the start he used my name in almost every message, all of which my viewer had blanked out for me. But from around here he stopped that and only used increasingly florid terms of endearment. And of course, one reason why the scammers do this, especially if they're a team, is that they don't actually have to remember who they're talking to. Good morning, beautiful. Have you started with some work? I've been up since early this morning, had some cereal for breakfast, and already knee-deep with work. It looks like it'll be Saturday that I'll be off and back some point on Monday. My meetings with them will be in the afternoons of Sunday and Monday. Failing video calls, my viewer then added, I pushed for a meet-up. He gave me the name of his street, which was conveniently long and lined with many upmarket blocks of flats. It was not too far away, an easy trip by train or car. Maybe, when they first contacted me, the scammers didn't realise that the town where I live is quite near to this supposed address. Otherwise, how could they expect to carry this off? I offered to meet Oscar at a cafe somewhere near where he lived to save him time, but he made excuses. Mostly, he was too busy working, but not too busy for long phone calls and looking up love songs to send me. He certainly didn't know the city where he claimed to have lived for 4 years. He said he liked to go for solitary walks in the park near his flat. I knew there was a large park in that area, but still I asked, which park? He then Googled and named several parks, which were all in different parts of the city that would have taken a couple of buses to get to. His story that he didn't have a car or even a driver's licence in the UK could have worked as an excuse to avoid meeting with some targets, but not me. Other times, Oscar was away on business, but on his return, he would have almost nothing to say about the trip. Everyone who comes back from business trip has some story about the train journey, the hotel, a restaurant they went to, their colleagues, but Oscar never did. And look out for this, ladies and gentlemen, as I've often said in the videos, if you ask a scammer what they've done, or ask them about the place that they visited, they can never tell you, because they have no idea. Also, my viewer continued, in his universe, London was some sort of communications black hole, so he wouldn't be in touch for the duration. Oddly, his business trips were always on weekends. These scammers only scammed from Monday to Friday. The business trips, as well as an excuse not to meet me, and to give the scammers their weekends off, were part of the grooming process. This was a man who travelled to meetings with influential people in his industry and gave presentations, albeit equipped only with a dodgy phone and no laptop. A man who competed to win lucrative contracts. Oscar did send me a few photos once in a single batch, and that was only after I asked repeatedly, and he made it a condition that I send some of me first. His seemed to check out. They were all of the same man as his profile picture. This man's looks even seemed to match with the friendly, self-effacing persona and Mediterranean accent of the soft voice on the phone. I was reassured, and more persuaded that despite my strong suspicions that it was a scam, it was worth carrying on with this, just in case he did turn out to be real. At the time, I had nothing to lose. I did Google Oscar Powell. I searched for that name on social media and football-related websites. I tried reverse image searches of his photos. 0 result. No one at all came up who could be this Oscar Powell, which was a red flag in itself, because a freelance international football scout surely would need an internet presence for his business, or he would have attended some football event reported in the media, not this one. The second half. Oscar only had to find reasons not to meet me for 3 weeks. That was the first half of the scam. The second half began when he told me that he was going to a football academy in Sweden, where he would compete with several other independent scouts for the contract to recruit some new young players for the academy. He forwarded me the invitation he received. Dear Oscar, it said, we at Dalkanos Football Academy are delighted to have you shortlisted for our conference bidding presentations starting on Saturday the 25th of June 2022. Your credentials has been verified by the relevant football governing body and certificates checked. May I take this opportunity to once again say congratulations for being among the other technical agents invited. Should you have any questions and queries, kindly forward them to our support team. Yours sincerely, Reek Brownlane. Hi babe, he texted to my viewer. I arrived safely. Not sure if you'll get my messages. I'm with a rep of the club in the car, taking me to the academy ground. Love you so much, babe. Missing you. After a few tense days in Stockholm, my viewer continued, he told me the great news. He'd won the contract. This was huge. His takings would be at least £300,000, but it was a very tight time schedule. He had to deliver the 3 young players to the academy within 14 days. Oscar then forwarded me the confirmation email with a letter of support and confirmation attached. It's so shaming that I didn't immediately recognise how fake it all was. I did wonder about the breach of professional confidentiality of him sending this to me, and the language and formatting was all over the place. But in the excitement, I explained it away as poor translation from Swedish, and that I didn't know what a contract to recruit football players for an academy would look like. "Sweetheart," he said, "I just got the email from the academy. I got it. I'm so happy, babe. And I have you to thank for always being supportive and encouraging. Love you so much." "Dear Oscar," said their email, "thank you for your willingness to serve as a recruiting technical scout for the 2022-2023 football season here at Dalkanos Football Academy, Sweden. The purpose of this letter is to provide you with some additional information about some expectations, updated policies and responsibilities as you will be representing the Academy. You are to resume pending contract to scout for 3 young talented players from Poland or Turkey. This contract has been awarded on the 27th of June 2022 and is due for 2 weeks, after which the contract is signed and confirmed. You agree to attend and technically supervise the transfer process at the stated locations, see contract award letter. Conduct yourself in a manner consistent with the values and mission of Dalkanos Football Academy, Sweden. Comply with all the rules governing Dalkanos Football Academy. Transfer process as set forth in the Academy Transfer Policy, see Policy Handbook, all of which are subject to revision from time to time, collectively Dalkanos policies. Follow the technical parameters and medical questionnaire forms. Session plan, corner approach, see Handbook Policy, in deciding the most suitable players for an eventual contract signing of the players, see Contract Award Letter. Provide the above forms upon completion of the transfer. The terms of this agreement is for the 2022-2023 football season. As stated in the letter, see Contract Award Letter, you will be paid an initial 70% of the total budget sum, payable in 24 hours upon receiving the Contract Award Letter, dated the 27th of June 2022, and balance upon delivering the players, see Policy Handbook. Dalkanos Football Academy reserves all rights to terminate this agreement at any time, should you breach any terms and condition of the contract, or violate Dalkanos policies, FIFA, UEFA, or relevant governing bodies' law. Fail to deliver the players at the stipulated time frame, as stated in the Contract Award Letter. Alter the technical parameters as discussed for scouting the players, see Policy Handbook. This agreement cannot be renewed without written agreement by both parties. In performing the services described in this letter, you shall at all times be acting as an independent affiliated agent and not as a direct employee of Dalkanos Football Academy. You agree to identify and hold the Academy harmless from any and all liability arising from claims relating to failure to deliver, make payments as at when due, losses or other extenuating circumstances of any kind. You must maintain your own health, properties and relevant legalities until the contract is completed. Your details, as stated in our briefing earlier, have been forwarded to the relevant consulate to fast-track the necessary paperwork for the trip, see Contract Award Letter. Should you require any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact us. May I take this opportunity to once again wish you a happy association with one of the foremost football academies in the world, Dalkanos Football Academy. Yours sincerely, Rick Brownlane. My viewer also sent this letter, and the more you read it and the more you look at it, the more you can see wrong with it. Dalkanos Football Academy, it's headed, with their address. Private and confidential. We are pleased to write you this letter of support and confirmation that Dalkanos Football Academy has formed a conceptual understanding with you, looking forward to the opportunities through the maturation of our relationship together. Your licence has been reviewed and you are confirmed as a registered soccer agent. You are to resume pending contract to scout for 3 young talented players from Poland or Turkey. This contract has been awarded on the 27th of June 2022 and it's due for 2 weeks, after which the contract is signed and confirmed. Dalkanos Football Academy has a detailed specification of the players, as stated in our offer published, still remain the same, which includes height 6'1", skills 60%, strength 80%, speed 85%, age 15 to 20. Not only are we excited about having you represent us in scouting for young talented players from Poland or Turkey, but you are also a potential site for business attraction, expansion and investments. With your outstanding achievements, contracts and vast experience, we look forward to a greater upliftment to start scouting after 3 days of this confirmation. Ensure the following conditions of contract are noted. The club is paying 70% of the contract sum, and you will get the balance when all the 3 players arrive at Dalkenos Football Academy. The club has suspended 2 weeks for this contract. The location and specification of the players should not be changed. Congratulations towards this prestigious award. Dalkenos Football Academy reserves the right to consistently demonstrate the highest level of bidding contracts for the recruitment of young players. We look forward to an outstanding achievement. And it was signed by Reek Brownlane, their technical director, and our man, Oscar Powell, the football agent. One important reason for him to send me the email, said my viewer, was so I knew the name of the Swedish Football Academy. So when I googled it, there in front of me was the website of Dalkenos Football Academy. The website had photos of boys and young men in football strip and playing football, logos, words about education and training, a contact form, advice to parents and guardians about visas, testimonials, some staff photos. The name on the email matched the name of the head coach there, Reek Brownlane. Oscar then spent a few days more at the Swedish Academy while he decided whether to go to Poland or Turkey to recruit the young players. Then he told me he was flying to Turkey, with all the travel and visas arranged by Dalkenos. My flight to Turkey is tomorrow, babe. It leaves Stockholm at 11:05 a.m. Good morning, my love. Wish I was there to keep you warm, but I'll be doing that soon, babe. I'm on my way to the airport. Love you so much. Here's a heartfelt song for you today. And one of those YouTube links. My love, I arrived Istanbul safely. There was a little delay at the airport when I arrived, with paperwork's being confirmed. But I'm out now and in the car with one of the reps of the academy taking me to their facility. Thank you for letting me know you've arrived safely, my darling, said my viewer, and I hope all goes well there. Thank you, babe. You're so sweet and supportive, he said. Good morning, my darling, said my viewer. What's it like to wake up in Istanbul? Good morning, sweetheart. It's warm and different, but in a good way. I've paid for the sessions and started already with the first one. Hoping to get everything done swiftly as possible. Missing you, my darling. Here's a special song for you today, and another of those YouTube links. Good morning, my sunshine. Hope you slept well. It'll be a busy one with sorting out the second session today. Wanted to let you know that I love you and adore you. You make me so happy, and I'm so honoured to be your man. Here's a song for you today, and another of those links. I know you're busy, said my viewer. Thanks for taking the time to message me. Anything for you, my love, he said. While in Turkey, added my viewer, he phoned and kept me updated daily, except on weekends, of course, when there would be some excuse, like we're going to a football camp in the mountains where there's no signal. How's the player search going? Asked my viewer the next day. It's going well, honey. I've had 2 from the pool of prospect. The others I had an eye for in the club didn't pass the second sessions. I'm meeting with their agents to discuss the contract terms today, and I'll be sourcing for the third one from the second academy here. Here's a song for you today, my love. And another link. I hope your negotiations go well today, my darling, replied my viewer. I'm waiting on the academy in Sweden to send back the revised contract so I can proceed with the negotiations for the first player. I'm sure I'll finish with the 2 players this week, and early next week it'll be the third one. I'll try to fast-track the last player's session. I'll pay for the session and have them on the same day. Not sure you'll get my message, as the connection is really bad here, he said. My viewer added in brackets, it was a Saturday, LOL. Wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you non-stop and love you ceaselessly. Everything is going well so far, and I'm keeping watch on my players. Love you. Feeling bored one day that week, my viewer said, I had a look back at Oscar's profile on the dating website. I wasn't surprised that it was still visible. Dating websites can make it hard to unsubscribe. But I was surprised to see that he'd been online recently. My heart sank. But maybe there was some innocent explanation. I checked his profile again, a few days later, and he'd been online again. I felt sick. Naively, I raised this with him, not accusingly, but just as a question. And remember, at this point, my viewer wasn't aware that she was in a scam. Of course, he acted angry and turned it around on me. Why did I still have a dating website account? Why was I on there looking at other men? I had betrayed him. He insisted that he believed his own account had been deleted, and that he would email the dating website and demand an apology from them. He told me to go on the website and find the contact details, and he would copy me into his email of complaint. It was all very upsetting, but we made up the next day. In fact, his profile was still active a week or so later, when I reported it to the website admin, who promptly removed it. Hi, sweetheart. Missing you, and can't wait to speak with you soon, as I'm back to the academy ground later tomorrow. I've been reflecting on the bleep we had, and I think it's shown how much we mean to each other, how deeply I love you, and will do anything for you. You're my happiness. Love you, babe. I agree, said my viewer. I felt so miserable the next day, till you phoned. It made me realise how much I've been looking forward to seeing you. Love you lots. Please, do phone when you're back at the Istanbul Academy. We're on the way back now, my love, he said. Seems the signal is getting better. Of course it is, added my viewer. It's Monday. Missed you, he said. And then, the next morning, the sting, said my viewer. All is not going well at the moment, sweetheart. I'm in a state right now, he said. Oh no, said my viewer. Do phone if you want to talk. But maybe you just want to keep working on it. He phoned, said my viewer, and gave an Oscar-worthy dramatic performance. He had to select and sign the third player that day, or he would be in breach of his contract and lose everything. He needed to pay the fee for the training session immediately, but his bank account was frozen, and none of his cards worked. He'd even appealed to his resentful brother in Philadelphia. Remember him? But he told me to go to hell. Oscar went on some more, elaborating about his dire situation. I made sympathetic noises and ended the call, telling him I didn't want to hold him up any longer from going to sort it out. Oscar never once asked for money. He never even said how much the fee was. But in one short, sickening phone call, 6 weeks of grooming fell into place. I'm 100% sure that was the moment when I was supposed to offer to pay the fee so he could finish the job on time, save his professional reputation, and collect the 6-figure fee so we could live happily ever after. I didn't expect ever to hear from Oscar again, but the next evening, Hi, haven't heard from you all day. Is it because I'm having some issues here? That's why I'm being ignored? I'd like to think not. The least you could have done is check on me and make sure I'm okay, but I guess you see it differently. Confused and hurt, added my viewer, I phoned him, and was surprised again that he answered. But now he was cold. He said the problem had been sorted, then he hung up on me. This scammer actually tried to make it look like he'd broken up with me because I'd let him down when he was in trouble, rather than it being the end of an unsuccessful scam. As soon as it had ended, I started doing the research, now with eyes wide open. She found the website of that academy. Dalkenas Football Academy appeared on Google with only 2 search results, its own bogus website and a site for reporting fake websites, scamadvisor.com. The supposed address was 10 Arenslingen Johanneshof, Stockholm 12177. Apologise for my pronunciation. That is the area around a football stadium, Tele2 Arena, but they didn't even spell Arenslingen or Johanneshof correctly. This is roughly where number 10 Arenslingen would be, she said, sending a street view photo of a car park. And if it were a real football academy, the name should appear in other places, for example, on a list of football academies in Sweden, or some successful football player would have training at Dalkenas Football Academy in their biography, but nothing. Via scamadvisor.com, I found that one individual, anonymous, address in Iceland, during 2021 and 2022, had registered websites for 3 fake football academies in Sweden and another 3 in Turkey. The Swedish ones all had different layouts, but the same bogus text, even some of the same staff photos, with odd pseudo-European names. Reek Brownlane, who was the head coach, on all three. So if I'd pressed Oscar harder for details about his activities in Turkey, he would have pointed me to the Turkish Football Academy websites. The same individual also had websites for fake mineral exploration companies. I didn't understand why, but now I know about the oil rig scams, it looks like they're related. These websites were mostly still online in January 2023, but when I last checked, they'd all disappeared. Again, I regret not taking screenshots. I reported the scam to the police via Action Fraud. There was nothing they could do, as expected, but they were remarkably supportive. I had a long phone call with a victim support officer, who also sent me lots of anti-fraud education material. That was how I found out about the work of Professor Elizabeth Carter, who researches the language used by romance scammers to manipulate their victims. And she gave a link to Thames Valley Police. If Oscar Powell was for real, he was a good catch, added my viewer. In the scammer's manufactured scenario, we were close enough in age, lifestyle and interests for a real relationship to be plausible, so I wasn't going to reject him just on the suspicion that it was a catfishing scam. If I was careful not to part with any money or bank details, what did I have to lose? Well, there was the cognitive dissonance, getting to know someone intimately, a voice and an image of their appearance over 6 weeks, then discovering that person never existed. The embarrassment at having told friends and family about him. Personal information that he did extract from me. Worst, details I told him about members of my family, and the photos and video messages I sent. But I've learnt a lot too, and found Annie's fun and informative channel and community. I'd like to thank my viewer for telling her story, which I think contains several lessons and some good warnings. Please, if you're on a dating website, keep your wits about you. Any excuse for not doing a video call is a poor excuse. And if the person does agree to a video call, watch very carefully. Is it a stolen video? Does the language that the person is using when they talk to you match the language they use when they're typing? In these days of AI, I believe it might be possible for them to fake a call, and I have heard, although haven't yet experienced it, that some scammers will simply employ actors to call you. So, keep your wits about you and stay safe, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, I'd like to thank my viewer for telling her story. If you did enjoy it, please like it, please share it, please comment down below, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again in another video.